Now, can you hear me?
Check one, two. I think I hear you, Ira. Let's see. All right, let me know if you can hear me.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, and I hear you.
Let me take my hearing aids off. Wait, just here, this location. So. Hold on. You okay? Can you? No, wait. Hold on.
Take your time.
I can't hear you. Now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you. And
okay,
can you hold the camera landscape? Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Hold on.
Take your time, Ira. Don't worry.
Okay,
Safety first.
I like to be right. Okay, so now you can hear me okay?
Yeah, let me hear you. Let me sing me a tune.
No, not me. Not even in the shower. Hold on.
All right.
Okay. Now let me get Tommy and we'll start.
Yeah, no rush. Whenever you're ready, don't worry.
Okay. Hold on. I just want to make sure that he can hear because we can't plug in the earhead.
Oh wait. Okay, well, let me check. Can you hear me?
I don't hear you at all now.
You don't hear me. Okay, 1 2.
Nothing.
1 2, check. I hear me.
Okay, something's wrong.
Yeah,
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I can't hear you. Let me see if I touch. Yeah, I touched.
1 2. 1 2.
Okay, now I hear you. All right.
There's only one problem. You disappeared from the screen. It went black.
Oh yeah, you know what? Now I can't see me either.
Yeah, I see.
Hold on. Okay.
Let me make sure I'm okay over here. Fix this.
Okay, I see you.
Okay.
And I'm dark in the corner now. You're okay.
Yeah, you have a black screen.
Yeah, I see you perfectly. I just can't see myself. Could you see me?
No, I see what you see, a black screen.
Okay, so hold on. Let's see what I'm doing. Stop video, mute, apps, participants. It's so weird. I had you before. Wait, let's try this button. There you go.
There you go. How's that?
Okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to let Tommy sit.
Okay.
You're going to have to sit here because we have to use the telephone again.
All right. So you're okay? Everything, you could hear me good, Ira?
I'm sorry?
You could hear me okay? Am I loud on your end?
Yeah, you could be a little bit louder if you can, but
you probably would have to do it on your side, but the problem is it might reverb back here. Is that Carol right there?
Yeah, no, I can't do that. So
is that Carol?
Let Tommy swing it. Hold
on.
Hi,
Carol. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you finally.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Yes, very nice to meet you.
Back and forth and back and forth. See, it's always nice to see the face.
You know what? Thank you very much for setting this up. And listen, if Tommy decides like he can't stand me, blame it on me.
Okay.
Blame it on me.
Okay.
All right.
I'm getting him.
All right.
You think ready to go.
That's not bad. That'll work, right?
Yeah, I think you're okay. I want you to be happy.
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. How do I sound on your end? Can you hear me?
It's a little low, but
Um,
is this up full blast? It's up full blast. So we're just gonna
is it
go with
full
this.
blast?
Yeah.
All right, for a disclaimer here, so people don't think I'm yelling at you, I'll try to talk loud, but I'm not yelling. Oh, I have all
Right.
the respect for you, Mr.
Well,
James.
okay.
Okay. But no, I appreciate you coming in here. Let me fix this a little bit. And let's see. How's the camera look on your end here before we even get
Looks
it
pretty
rolling?
good.
I'm gonna edit it, so don't worry. I'll do clips. And
All right.
if you happen to freeze on me from the internet, I'll do
Yeah.
overlays and stuff because that
Okay.
happens a lot. All righty. And hey Tommy, I got a really quick a friend of mine read your book and wants to say hello to you. It's Kenny Vance,
Oh yeah.
a good friend of mine. And
I've known Ken for years. No, I love Ken. He's a good man.
a great
Very
man,
good man.
one of the best, a mensch,
And super talented.
very talented. Yeah, he was telling me, oh, that's a great guest you had. I had him on, Vinny Poncia, a couple of guys you might know, but
Yeah. Well, Pete and Vinny were, Pete Anders and Vinny Poncia were partners for all those.
yeah.
Worked on several of my records singing, and they were just incredible songwriters. And we lost Pete a few years ago, but but I have seen Vinny Poncia since then. He's
Yeah, Vinny.
another great guy.
Oh, great guy. I met Vinny through Kenny, and
I can't hear you. I must have done something.
check
Ira?
1 2.
Yes.
1 2.
I have done something to the volume. I hit something on the phone. I cannot hear here. Can you fix this?
It should be on the
Can you
top.
hear
Sure.
me?
I hear you. I
You
do
can't
hear
hear
you.
me, and I.
No, I hear
Hold on.
you.
Hold
I
on.
hear you. I definitely hear
No, it's the
you.
volume. I hit something
1
up
2.
here.
1 2. Check 1 2. 1 2. 1 2.
Everything's so goddamn fragile.
1 2. 1 2. Check 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 check.
Hello,
Me,
can you hear?
I hear you, Ira. You're
No,
fine.
I can't hear
1
you.
2. 1 2. 1 2.
Hold on.
1 2. 1 2. 1
I hit
2.
something up here.
Yeah.
1 2. 1 2. 1 2. 1 2. Check 1 2. 1 2. 1 2.
Tried to take a hold of the phone.
Okay, hold on.
1 2. 1 2.
There it is.
1
There it
2.
is.
Check 1.
Can
Check
you hear
1.
me now?
Yeah, you sound great. I hear you fine.
All right, but I couldn't hear you for a long time there.
I know. You want to grab that phone and then it'll just get all chaotic. See?
Everything's so fragile. Every time I touch the phone, I hit something.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Well, you know what? We know the same people, so I think we might have a good conversation here, and that's what I want to make it all about.
How
Because
long you want to do?
you know what? As long as you want. The minute you get
All right.
you want out, you're out. What's good for you? You want 30 minutes?
Yeah, 30 is good.
Is that good for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Whatever people see in this episode, and they're gonna have to buy the book because look at this.
That's right.
This is what they got to do. You could get the book and all that good stuff. For my Patreons watching this unedited right now, this book is something else. And I knew the music, but I didn't know the whole stories, but I knew kind of the stories because everybody from the East Coast, Roulette Records, Morris, and we're gonna get all into that. I'm gonna give you an intro really quick. So I have it right here and I don't have to redo it later. And let's go back here.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. You heard the music with iconic songs like I Think We're Alone Now, Moni Moni, Crimson and Clover. Covered by legends like Billy Idol, REM, and even Bruce Springsteen and Dolly Parton, to name a few. I mean, the name Tommy James. That's the man. And that's who's in the hot seat. His music, his songs, his story. It's all going to start right now. Don't touch that dial. Bam. All right. There we go. That's a good intro.
Very good.
All right. Professional, right, Tommy?
I'm telling you, I'm damn impressed.
It's all downhill after this. It's all downhill. Man, your story is a wild. It really is. It's like in the book, a hell of a ride. What Morris said to you.
Well, honestly, when you do an autobiography, the only problem is you actually have to tell the truth. So Me, the Mob, and the Music basically was a book we were going to originally call Crimson and Clover, and we were going to talk about writing the hits, talk about being in the studio, and it would have been a fun book. But we got about a third of the way into it and realized that if we don't tell the roulette story, which really is the story, that we are going to cheat ourselves and everybody else. But I was a little nervous about doing that because in the roulette story is, talking about a lot of very notorious people. And so at any rate, I was a little nervous because a lot of these guys were still walking around. This is back in, like 04 and 05. And so Martin Fitzpatrick and I put the project on a shelf for a couple of years until the last of the roulette regulars, as I called them, passed away. And that happened in December of 05, actually. And so we figured we could finish the story, and we did. And as soon as we did finish Me, the Mob, and the Music, we started getting sounded on from movie people and Broadway people and just a whole slew of people who wanted to take the story further. And so there's going to be a movie, coming up. We'll talk about that a little later. But basically, the story is the gist of the book is an autobiography with about 2/3 of it devoted to our very sometimes scary relationship, but tumultuous and crazy relationship with Roulette Records, the label we had most of our hits on. And the reason it was scary and tumultuous is because, unbeknownst to us, when we signed with Roulette, in addition to being a functioning, pretty good, indie label, was also a front for the Genovese crime family in New York. And of course, that made life really interesting for us. While we were hanky-pankying and moaning, this very dark and sinister story was going on behind us that we really couldn't talk about. So that was the story, basically, of our relationship with Roulette.
I mean, come on. First of all, the whole story with meeting Morris for the first time, that's a whole trip in itself, because me being so crazy, I got to rewind. First of all, writing this book, even knowing that some of them are not here anymore, but they're still in the back of your head, a little like looking over your shoulder. You never, right?
Yes. Yeah, a little bit, right? It had to be,
I grew up in Canarsie, so I understand, in Brooklyn, so I understand the whole world. To let the audience know about this, Hanky Panky originally, you put it out before you basically that song is what got you in cahoots.
Well, that's right. The story of Hanky Panky really goes back to 1964, and I recorded Hanky Panky in my hometown of Niles, Michigan, a little town in the Midwest. I recorded it in a radio station. One of the jocks, Jack Douglas on WNIL, was starting a little regional record label and asked if we would record for him. And of course, in about 3 seconds, I said, "Hell yes!" And so my group, the Shondells, and I went into the studio and recorded several tracks for Jack. And one of them happened to be Hanky Panky, which was a song we had seen another group play in a teen club and saw the reaction to it and everybody hitting the dance floor. And so we said, that's a song we should do. So we did it, and it was released and was sort of half a hit. We had no distribution, of course. And but in our little, we were big fish in a small pond. And so we were on all the jukeboxes, but the record kind of came and went, and didn't do a hell of a lot, but put us on the map. And So when I graduated from high school in 1965, I took my band on the road, and we played dance clubs in the Midwest. And in early '66, we're playing this dumpy little club in Janesville, Wisconsin, and right in the middle of my 2 weeks, the guy gets shut down by the IRS for not paying his taxes. So we got let go, of course, and sent back home to Niles, Michigan, feeling like real losers.
Yeah.
And as soon as I get home, that's how God works, by the way, because as soon as I got home, I got the call that changed my life. It seems that Hanky Panky had been bootlegged. They got such a reaction to it. Somebody picked it up out of a record cemetery and played it on the radio, and there was such a reaction to it that they bootlegged 80,000 copies, a local distributor, and sold them in 10 days. And we were sitting at #1 in the city of Pittsburgh, nowhere else. And so they tracked me down, and it was just such a miracle that I was home at that exact moment, because we'd been fired from the club. And he filled me in on what had happened. And so it was a fellow from the distributorship, and he told me that we were sitting at #1 in the city of Pittsburgh. And then shortly after that, a local promoter called and asked if I would come to Pittsburgh and do some radio and some shows. I couldn't put the original band back together, so I went alone, and with the producer of the record, Jack Douglas. And so I went to Pittsburgh, and sure enough, we're sitting at #1. And outside the city limits, I'm nobody. But as soon as I cross into Pittsburgh, I'm a rock star. So it was just an amazing tale. I got to Pittsburgh, did some shows, and I picked up a local group to be the Shondells. And a week later, we're in New York City selling the master of Hanky Panky to a major label. So I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but I'm just setting this thing up. So we got a yes from Columbia, we got a yes from RCA, got a yes from Atlantic, Epic, and finally the last place we took the record to was Roulette. And so I went to bed that night feeling like we were going to be with one of the majors and major corporate labels. And so I'm just feeling great. So the next morning, I start getting calls at our hotel telling us that, sorry, Tom, we got to pass. Like from about 4 different labels. And I finally said, what the hell's going on? Jerry Wexler up at Atlantic told us the truth, that Morris Levy from Roulette Records had called all the other labels and backed everybody down, scared the hell out of them. He says, "This is my record. Back off." And they did, even Columbia. So anyway, that's the way he talked. So at any rate, we were apparently going to be on Roulette Records. That was the first offer I couldn't refuse. So I met Morris that day, and Morris, who was the head of the label, and a very notorious character, I might add. He was about 6'3", 6'4". He was a big guy, and he was right out of the movies, right out of Central Casting. I'm not kidding. And he shook your hand. It was like grabbing a hold of a catcher's mitt. It's just huge hand. He's just a big guy. And so at any rate, we were going to be on Roulette. But strangely enough, they took the record to #1, and #1 in the United States and #1 all over the world. It was one of the biggest records of the summer of '66 in the whole country. And I can tell you right now that if we had gone with one of the corporate labels, we would have been lucky to have been a one-hit wonder, especially with a record like Hanky Panky, a fluky record like that. And the competition would have been horrible. And we would have been lucky to come out with one hit record. At Roulette, they actually needed us. And so I got the red carpet rolled out, the key to the candy store, and everything I wanted. Of course, getting paid was another issue, but from a creative level, I couldn't have asked for better. I'm sorry to be so long-winded,
No,
but
that's
what set everything up.
I have all the time for you. I just want to make sure you have time for me. Now, let the audience know, Morris, his character is basically based on the Sopranos character Hesh. They based that character from Morris, correct?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
the older Jewish record promoter who was stealing from everybody. Yeah.
But in reality,
they called him Moish.
They called him Moish.
So but Moish was Hesh.
But in reality, the real Morris Levy was a lot. They made Hesh a little softer than the real guy.
Oh, much. A little older, too.
A little older, too. Was Roulette more like an independent record label, or were they as back then?
Well, yes, it was. It was an indie label, and they mainly sold singles. They had a lot of hits. I mean, going back to Joey D and the Starlighters. And
Joey D and Frankie Lyman was on it, correct?
Yes.
And, I had Joey D on the show
Knox
here.
And Jimmy Bowen. And
what? Wow.
A whole bunch of people.
Yeah. I had actually Joey D on the show here. Great guy. Great stories.
Yeah. Good friend of mine.
Yeah. Fabulous guy. I connected him with Andrew Dice Clay. And then I think after that, I scared Joey off. I go, Joey, be careful. Because that's a whole nother story.
Well, Joey had basically the same treatment I did, you know, and we compared a lot of notes together. But, you know, strangely enough, as I said, creatively, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. They allowed me to put my own production team together. They allowed us, myself and the new Shondells, total creative freedom. And eventually, I became friendly with Bo Gentry and Richie Cordell over from Kama Sutra Records, and brought them over to be my producers and songwriters for the first half dozen records. And they came to me with I Think We're Alone Now, and It's Only Love, and Mirage, and you know, they're just on and on. And I was very thankful to have them, to be able to bring them over to Roulette, because my career could have ended with Hanky Panky very easily.
Yeah,
until I learned my craft, you know, to produce and write and all the rest of it. So, but at any rate, Morris Levy was, as I say, right out of the movies. And, you know, we'd meet somebody in Morris's office. He'd introduce us to somebody. And, you know, a week later, we'd see him doing the perp walk, you know, out of a warehouse in New Jersey in handcuffs. And I said, isn't that the guy we just met at Morris's? And of course it would be. And that sort of thing kept happening. And we finally realized who we were involved with.
So it took you, but did you have a hunch when you first met him? Like, hey, is this guy, or you just?
Well, he looked the part. I mean, he, as I said, it was right out of the movies, and he talked like this, and you couldn't mistake it. You know, I think they all went to school to learn to talk like that. Yeah. So, at any rate, Morris was. But, you know, he and I had this crazy relationship. It was like an abusive father-son relationship where he slapped the kid around, but he sent him to college, you know, and it was just that kind of crazy relationship. And strangely enough, we respected each other.
Wow.
So he kind of stayed out of my way of making music, and I stayed out of his way for everything else. And it was an interesting story, and I don't think you can top Rock and Roll and the Mob.
No,
you know what I mean? I think that's just a great story. And of course, so many things happened up there. I mean, I won't go into all of them right now, but it was really a very dicey situation much of the time.
It's for anybody out there, and you want to check out the book, I'm going to put the links in the description or click right above here. But you just look at the cast of characters in here. It's insane. And
it's pretty bad. Not to interrupt you, but it's pretty bad when the only pictures you can find of your record company executives are mugshots.
So true. So true. But the stories, they never grow old. I actually, for everybody watching here, when you're talking about Jack Douglas, for everybody watching, it's not Jack Douglas that was on the show who worked with John Lennon. That was a
Right,
different Jack
right.
Douglas. But
this was a disc jockey from WNIL where we who originally recorded Hanky Panky.
He really helped you. He put the gas in the car for you, that guy.
An unsung hero. I mean, when I think of all the people that had a part in my success, that I never really got a chance to thank properly and let them share it. Some of them I did, but most of the people who were responsible for my success were unsung heroes, and that I am very grateful for, and I mean it.
Yeah,
and so many of them aren't with me anymore. Just it's been so long.
You know, the one thing good about this book, it's people like Jack that get noticed now, you know.
Yes.
And back then, when you're working so hard, it's sad because they're not getting recognized about what
Well,
they've
that's right.
done. And
That's right.
it's the way, this is what the music business, this is what it is.
I'm so blessed and so glad that I got a chance to tell the story. And you know, I don't think we overstated anything or understated everything. I think I was exactly as fair as I could possibly be and got everybody's name spelled right and told it like it was.
Yeah, the story is incredible. I was reading this. It's one of those books where you want to read it two times, three times, and I'm still almost at the end, but I have to read it again. I'm just so right now, I got to be honest with you, Tommy. I'm so happy that I'm talking to you and even getting this much out of talking to you because I've been trying so hard to get you on the show. So I'm all over the place right now. So forgive me.
Well, thank you. Now, if you said you read it 2 or 3 times, does that mean you pay 2 or 3 times?
No.
You may owe me some money now that I think about it.
And that's right. I didn't read it 2 times. You have to read it 2. I'm in the middle of reading it now. I'm this far into it. I didn't get to the whole ending, but I got to be honest. I do cheat, and then I go skip through some pages to see what goes on with some of the characters in this story. But for me, as a kid growing up, especially in the 70s, my mom had the 45s, and for everybody watching Kato Records, you'd hear Tommy dragging the line out there, which Kato Records and Roulette, was that Morris's? Was that both?
Oh yeah, Morris was responsible for so many things. I mean, I'm not kidding you. He put so many labels in business. You know, Buddha and Kama Sutra, and of course K-Tel and Adam 8.
His son. That was named after his son.
His son was Adam Levy, and so Morris was. They used to call him the godfather of the music business, and I think that was pretty good. That's pretty apt description.
Wasn't he gonna try to trademark the coin rock and roll? Is that true?
Yes. Can you imagine? Morris Levy managed Alan Freed.
Wow.
Who actually came up with the term. Well, he didn't come up with the term rock and roll, but he used it for pop music. And it was actually an old black saying for sex.
And really?
So, yes. And Alan Freed used it in a music way. And then Morris, when Alan came to New York, Morris ended up managing him and took the term rock and roll and came this close to trademarking. I mean, the government finally told him he couldn't do that, but it was so close. Can you imagine Morris trademarking the term rock and roll? Can you imagine what that would, the income that would generate?
The Coca-Cola or rock and roll, just to own that name. Yeah. Huge forever. So much with that. So he had Kato Records. There was a story that Jack Douglas, the producer, had told me that when Lennon was doing his rock and roll record, he brought the masters to Morris's house up in
Morris threatened him.
Is that what happened?
That was a whole other story. What happened is John Lennon wrote a song that's on that was going to be on his solo album, and it copied a line from the Chuck Berry song, and I can't think of the name of the song.
The Beatles song. He took a line "Come Together."
That's it. And so Morris was going to sue Lennon, and John basically worked out a deal with Morris where he would let Morris distribute the album, and he basically would send Morris rough cassettes of the songs. And so what Morris did, Morris put out the rough cassettes as an album called Roots. And so John's freaking out. And anyway, he goes up to Morris's farm, where I had been 100 times, and he goes up there, and May Pang told me that Morris threatened him when May was going with John, and told me that Morris had threatened him right out in the open. And so they ended up suing each other, and John won. Morris lost the case. And so it went on from there. But that's the kind of shenanigans that Morris was involved in.
It was the Chuck Berry song, "You Can't Catch Me." So Morris,
that's it.
So Morris owned the publishing.
Correct.
So he got songwriting credit for the Chuck Berry song. Is that?
Well, he owned the copyright on the song, which means he owned the song.
Yeah.
And so at any rate, that's how silly the whole thing was.
It was crazy.
But Morris didn't care. He would. He had no respect for anybody when it came to being a tough guy.
But what about Lennon wanting to go? I'd be so afraid to go. Who would want to go? Like, you just know.
Well, that's right.
You just go up there. May Pang, a friend of yours, she's been on the show too. Great stories she has, and
she's a nice lady.
A very nice lady. Yeah, 100%. Well, I remember that record, the commercials on TV for the Lennon record, The Roots. It was a yellow cover, and
right.
Yeah, and they had on Adam 8 Records,
right.
Label, which
Morris.
That was Morris, which I think later that album turned out to be John Lennon's rock and roll record. But yes. Wow. So he could have ended up with the Fishes, Lennon.
Well, I don't know if it would have gone that far, but he was threatened. I know that. Wow. And of course, that's Morris.
That is Morris.
The relationship I had with Morris was really very interesting, and as I said, like an abusive father-son relationship. And Morris was responsible for a great deal of my success and everything that happened to me. So I have this, I have mixed feelings about all this stuff.
I was going to say, but even negotiating with him as a young artist, of course, you want the record come out, you want to get the deal, you want to be on TV and all this stuff. You sign with him. Did you negotiate and beforehand go, hey, how much am I going to get? Did you put the yarmulke on and think, hey?
Well, I'll tell you what negotiating with Morris is like. I said, so Morris, am I getting the standard 12%? Yeah, you're getting 10%. You'll do well to get 8%. You're getting 3%. And then you don't get the 3% either. So, basically we realized early on that mechanical royalties were just not going to happen. Now, we were making great money from concert touring, from our songwriting, from BMI, and commercials and all the other stuff we were involved in. But mechanical royalties were just not going to happen. Plus, he had our publishing. So he cross-collateralized everything so that we ended up with nothing from the mechanical royalties or the publishing.
Wow.
So that's just the way it was. But we had this incredible string of hits with Morris, which I don't think we would have had anywhere else. I really mean that. I think it would have, there's no way we would have had the kind of success that we had if we had been with one of the big corporate labels. Too much competition, too much, everything. And so Morris allowed us to have great success, and I mean one hit record after another. And so for that, I'm very grateful. So we basically had to decide whether to try to take him on in court and get out of our contract, which would have been very dangerous. Make no mistake about it. So we decided to stick it out, and I'm glad we did, because I end up being able to tell the story.
You tell the story. I mean, your sound of Tommy James and the Shondells, and even when you went solo, you had that sound, and you captured the era, the music of the late 60s going into the 70s. I think of you guys' sounds, and even that great bass playing on Dragging the Line, that tone. I love all that stuff. Was it 68? You even outsold the Beatles in the US, correct?
With singles, yeah. 68, 69. Yeah.
Wow. That's huge. Huge.
Not on albums. I mean, they buried us on albums, but I mean with singles, yeah.
On singles, you did.
Sold a load of singles.
Yeah.
And that's Morris. Thanks to Morris. Morris had an amazing machine. The record business in general, it just blows me away when I think about it, because almost all these guys were street guys.
Yeah.
I don't mean they were all thugs. I mean that they were all off the street. These were all first generation record guys, and they weren't really businessmen. I mean, they learned how to be businessmen, but I mean, they weren't white collar executives like, in insurance companies and banks and so forth. These were regular, average, everyday guys. Put this incredible machine together called the record business that, the radio guys, the promo guys, the record company guys, the pressing plants, retail distributors, and they all had to work together to make this happen. You could literally record a song on Monday, and by Saturday, have it on the radio and in the record store. Wow. Just amazing. And I marvel at all this stuff. I started out working in a record shop, all through high school, where I learned retail and learned the trade papers and all that. So it was like a college education. But when I came to New York, especially with a guy like Morris, who, was street level all the way, and he actually was a hell of a businessman. And he heard hits. He had the ear. Great record man. I mean, yeah. But of course, he always chose the dark side when it came to business.
Yeah.
And it's too bad, because it kept a lot of people from wanting to deal with him.
That is too bad. But he knew the music. He knew he had an ear for it. He did have an ear.
Right.
He did. As tough and rough.
I learned so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned so much from him.
Interesting story, Tommy. So now meeting the characters that came along with Roulette Records, wasn't Tommy
Tommy
Eberly, was he partners with Roulette?
Yes, he was Morris's immediate partner. He ended up being the godfather of the boss of the Genovese family when Vito Genovese died in Atlanta in prison. It was he died Valentine's Day of 1969. Vito Genovese. And Tommy became Tommy was his right arm. Tommy would go to Atlanta and come back and tell the rest of the guys what the orders were. And he was Morris's immediate partner. And these guys loved coming up to Roulette. They would hang out in Roulette like a social club. And, they loved the action in the record business. And just hang around. And Tommy Eberly and well, I can say all this now. They're all gone, but Vinny the Chin Gigante who was in the Genovese family, was a capo in the they were all hanging out at roulette.
Oh.
And so I mean, all these guys and a whole lot of others. Tony Salerno, who became Tony Soprano, you know, in the Sopranos.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I shook hands with all these guys and met them, and Morris introduced me to them. And so there was this caravan of people up at roulette that, you know, I learned about over TV news. These these gangsters that you heard about on the news, and they'd come up to roulette and hang with Morris. And Morris wasn't a made guy. He was Jewish, and he was as they say, an associate. But and I'm a hick from the Midwest. I'm a kid. I'm 19 years old, and so all I can say is that it was such an interesting perspective that I was in, because I'm a civilian, obviously, and but had to be very careful because we couldn't talk about any of this stuff.
No, you mentioned in the book.
But that's the first time.
Yeah, you mentioned in the book, but you tell a story, and I don't mean to cut you off because I don't know how much time you have, but I want to. There's a story in here that you mentioned your last time with Tommy when you played your show. I think you're in the office and you spoke with him, and
Morris was playing my latest record, which at that time was Love Song, and Tommy comes up, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, we're very proud of you. We're really proud of you. And I said, well, thank you. The first people you got to convince are the people in your own corner. And without them, you're not going to convince anybody else. He said, well, we are, and I want you to know. And that was the next night, Saturday. That was on a Friday. The next night, he was assassinated. He was killed out in Brooklyn, and all hell broke loose at that point. And so anyway, what I'm saying is that I don't know how many people he gave compliments to like that, but it couldn't have been too many. And I was, these guys, they live hard and they die young and they die quick. And it's a terrible thing, because that life, I can't imagine why anybody would choose that life, because it is literally so freaking dangerous. I don't know why anybody would choose to do that, because there's never a peaceful moment. You don't know if death is coming from a cop or one of your best friends. And I had to get out of there, but I mean, that didn't happen until 74.
But your nerves,
you can't have a normal conversation with one of these guys.
But you being around these people, and when you heard he was gunned down, he was actually leaving. For everybody out there, he was, I believe, leaving his girlfriend's home, and he got gunned down in front of her place.
That's right. And we're playing in Brooklyn that night at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater, where Alan Freed used to have those incredible concerts, and we happened to be playing there with the Grassroots that night. And as I'm leaving and going back, that's when it happened. And Monday morning I went up to roulette, and the place was just crazy, because that was Morris's partner, and what was going to happen, nobody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And there had just been a big gang war in 71 in New York City, and so what was that going to start up again? What are we talking about here? And it was an awful time. And I knew at that moment I had to get out of it. I was getting out of it.
Plus, you
I
know what?
had my Florida.
And then plus you're making them money, so then who knows who's after you? You're thinking in the back of your head, right?
Well, I had a conversation with my attorney in '71 when a big gang war broke out in New York, when the Gambinos were taking over New York, and of course Morris was on the wrong side, and I was told that it would be a real good idea if I left town. Morris took off for Spain with Nate McCalla, his bodyguard, and took off for Spain. And we were all left there holding the bag. And I was told by my attorney that if they can't get Morris, they're liable to go after whatever's making Morris money, and that's you. I said, oh, that's great. Oh, that's just great. So I went to Nashville and for several months, and I recorded an album down there with Pete Drake and Buddy Harmon and Buddy Spiker, a lot of buddies. And, you know, it was, I think, one of the best albums I ever did, my Nashville album called My Head, My Bed, My Red Guitar. And, but I had to leave town, and I was, you know, I'd had my fill. And then when Tommy got killed, I knew I had to leave. I couldn't take any more of this silly crap.
Yeah, it was too much. But that country record you did, it's such a great record. And Pete was also your introduction to Elvis's band, Scotty Moore and DJ.
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah. So I did the album with Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, Elvis's old guys. And then Elvis was going to come over and take us to dinner one night, and he ended up not being able to come. We talked on the phone, but I was very, very glad to talk to him, meet him over the phone, and have Scotty and DJ on the album.
Oh, it's fantastic. Fantastic.
Scotty was the engineer too.
What? Oh,
it was amazing.
Just to play with him, the knowledge you picked, you could see his hands, what he's playing.
Oh, he was incredible technique with the country licks.
Mm-hmm.
He was an unbelievable musician. He really was. And he took it all for granted, you know, no big deal. And nobody played like him. He was one of a kind.
One of a kind. He was there from
the beginning. So then in '72, when all that, after Tommy Everly was killed, I just decided I'm not making any more records. And wow. It took me 2 years to convince Morris that it was over. And Morris then finally let me go in '74. And I ended up signing with Fantasy Records out on the West Coast. I got as far away from New York as I could.
Fantasy, who had Credence on their label as well, I believe.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And
so that was anyway, a time. That was a time in your life that was like you didn't know what was going to go on with Tommy James now, like which way you were going, basically.
That's right. I ended up coming back. We did 2 albums for Fantasy. They did okay. But then I came back and had another hit record with 3 Times in Love, and I signed with Millennium Records. And so I was, it was my first adult contemporary record. We went #1 adult contemporary and top 10 on the pop charts. But I was an adult and quite contemporary. So anyway, that was my introduction to being an adult artist.
The music is fat. Let me tell you, I went looking. You could go on. I'll put a link for your website so everybody could check out your music. And you on YouTube. You have a YouTube channel too with a bunch of songs that you probably never heard for my audience watching. Besides all the hits that you know of, I think We're Alone, Moni Moni. But the one thing about you, Tommy, is you know how to do a melody, and that's what a song is all about. A melody, and you're
thank you.
Your vocals and your singing and your phrasing, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank
you. And it's true. It never gets old, never dies. It's something that'll live forever. But your melodies are the storybook of people like our lives. Whatever you were thinking when you wrote these songs, we make our own stories, like, it goes on in our head. And not only
Well,
that,
I'm so blessed that the music has stayed in front of people all these years. It's quite amazing, really.
in movies.
I look out at our concert crowd now and I see literally 3 generations of people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I never, in 1966, I never dreamed that in 2024 I'd still be playing hanky panky on stage and they'd still be moving and screaming. So I'm really very blessed, and I thank the good Lord and the fans for the kind of longevity we've had. And things are still popping. I have my show on Sirius every week. It's called Getting Together with Tommy James. It's on every Sunday from 5 to 8 p.m. on Eastern Time on Channel 73, 60's Gold, and we're in our 7th year now. Wow. And that's amazing.
It is amazing.
And of course, we're all over the country this year. If anybody wants to come to our website or Facebook page, particularly the website, and see where we're playing this year, we're all over the country. And love to see everybody. I love mixing it up with the fans. And so, I mean, I really can't complain at all. I'm very blessed.
No, you are very blessed. Now, I took a question because on my community board, what I do before I let you get out of here, I know you're probably so busy, but if you don't mind, I put a post that you're coming up here, and I asked people if they had a question, and a lot of people are just excited when I have an artist like you on here, so I want them to feel a part of it. And right here, this is from my community board. I want to thank you guys for all writing, and keep on writing for our guests like Tommy who come on here. But this is from and if I butcher your name, forgive me, Brian. I'm from Brooklyn, so hey Brian, I'm just saying hey Brian. So Brian asked Tommy, what is your favorite and least favorite cover version of your songs? It's a tough one.
I don't think I have any least favorite, because anytime another artist does one of my songs, I'm very flattered, very honored, and all I can say is my favorite. Okay, that's a tough one. I think it might be Prince's version of Crimson and Clover. He really did a very futuristic kind of production, and I love his guitar playing on it. And I'd have to throw in there probably maybe Billy Idol's version of Moni. It's probably the way we would have done it if it had been 20 years later, if we'd have done it in the 80s instead of the 60s, with the crunch guitar and everything. And maybe REM did a hell of a version of Dragging the Line in the Austin Powers movie. And I did a duet with, not exactly a duet. I played guitar and sang background on Dolly Parton's version of Crimson and Clover. I play it a lot on my radio show. And so she did a country version of it. And you wouldn't figure Crimson and Clover could be done country, but she did, and she tore it up.
Great. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'll give you one more from my audience over here. And this one is from EMVE 9658. I'm sure you have a real name, but that's the name that YouTube gives me. Any updates on the movie adaptation of your excellent book? And then
yes.
Who would you like to play you in it? 2 questions they threw in there.
Well, to play me, I'm the worst one to ask. Walter Brennan. I don't know. No, there are so many young actors today that started out in rock bands. I'm not kidding you. You wouldn't believe how many of the young male actors started out in rock bands, and they know how to play, and they know how to sing, and you can't fool people anymore. They've got to, ever since the movie Ray, where Jamie Foxx actually sounded like Ray, Ray Charles, and he also played like him. It was quite amazing. He really raised the bar, so you can't fool people with lip syncs anymore.
No.
So I'm going to leave that up to the adults. But the other thing is that for 3 years during COVID, Hollywood shut down, and so they're back up, and then the writers' strike came right afterwards. So Hollywood is back up and running now again. They're just getting up to power now. Excuse me. Barbara DeFina, our producer, who, by the way, did Goodfellas and Casino, and she was married to Martin Scorsese for quite some time, and was his producer. And she is now putting things back together, and they're in the casting phase right now. And so we're probably looking at another 18 months, 2 years. That's the speed Hollywood operates on. I'm getting a real kick out of seeing all this come together. And the real trick as the producer is to get the technical crew and in addition to the stars of the movie, to get them all together in one place at one time, because all of these people have separate careers, and getting everybody available at the same time is really quite an achievement. And she's doing it. So, like I say, we're talking another 18 months, 2 years, and that's just the way it's going to be. I'm just kind of watching all this come together. I co-produce. One of the things we got to be very careful of is because there's a lot of studio shots of the records being made. We got to make sure that the equipment in the studios is accurate with the year that the record was made, because there's so many geeks out there who really would know instantly if the piece of equipment you've got in a 68 scene wasn't available till 78. They would know that.
They would know.
So it's
you're right.
Yeah. So it's very important to be authentic and accurate. So that's my job. As I'm going to be technical advisor, I'm also going to be co-producer. So thanks for asking.
No, absolutely. Great questions. I could see, and you talk about actors, musicians turning into actors, and one actor who was originally a musician, Johnny Depp, I could picture him being a Tommy James.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know about that, but Dennis Quaid. I mean, so many people that of course, the real challenge is going to be to find somebody who plays guitar as badly as I do.
No, I don't think you play that.
That won't be easy.
That won't be easy. You are fabulous. I mean, I go down the rabbit hole, and everybody, you could see these great footages of Tommy, the errors that he's talking about with Dick Clark, and all this great stuff you have done, man. Tommy, I'm just so happy we got a chance to talk, and I hope I didn't scare you off. And I really had a great conversation with you. I hope you feel
well. Thank you.
And one guy
you asked all the right questions.
You know what? I don't know if I asked the right questions, and between you and me, I'm a little nervous. Hey, your bass player, Greg, I'm friends with him. So
he's a great bass player and a good man.
Great bassist, and you have a great band. And everybody out there, in the meantime, I know there's so many questions I didn't ask Tommy, and you guys are going to kill me, but I don't want to burn him out, but maybe he'll come back on here again. But
we'll do it again.
You'll do it again? I would love to have you back on. And
absolutely.
Me, the Mob, and the Music. I got the book. You get the book. Don't have alligator arms. Get it now before the movie comes out. But Tommy, it's great having you here. Thank you very much.
God bless you, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You too. Keep on rocking. And Ira and Carol, thank you all for just putting this all together. I got to thank you.
I will tell them.
All righty. I'll let you go. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Now I'm going to end it. So we'll say goodbye. See you later, Tommy.